everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on season 2, episode 7 of Psychopaths. And yeah, we're past the halfway point. There's a lot of suspicions around Togani. There's a lot of suspicions around everything happening, so who knows? But last episode's Kamui made their getaway on the love boat. What color? Alongside Shisui. They've stolen a bunch of Dominators from the now dead Division 3, and Akane's like, WTF, and how is Kasai and the Sybil System going to handle this? That is a very good question, and I can't wait to see how this turns out. But I went back and rewatched the episode the other day, and I saw some comments, and there's a couple things I want to note. First, Adaro Sullivan noted that Kunazuka actually comforted Mika back during season 1 of the school incident with Mikishima and the girl whose father had the disease, right? I like how we have that entire school arc not only harkens back to Mikishima, but also there's a lot of themes from that one little mini arc that are coming back here in season 2, like the idea that Mika was at the school where the girl was committing murders. The idea of there being like body modification from the art school arc where bodies were being manipulated and transformed, which is also in the OP, so very curious, but she was doing some experimentation with the bodies, so there's that. There is also the idea that you have the disease that apparently is making people go numb. That was in the back to school arc. Mika was getting comforted by Kunazuka, which is why she probably has this like idol complex around Kunazuka. So there's that that's interesting. So all these little things about that little school arc are tying into season 2, which is very curious indeed. But I did some notes. I thought about this. The scene at the end of the last episode where Akane points the Dominator at Kamui, she says it doesn't work on him. Does that mean that because I don't think I recall in the last episode him even showing a crime coefficient. So is it that his crime coefficient is like Akane's, that it's so low that it doesn't work at all? Or is he not showing a crime coefficient at all? And if that's the case, why and what? So I don't know. I'm very, very curious about that. But also, my theory about Togani being a mysterious secret villain is getting more complicated, because going back and rewatching the last episode, I was like, wait a minute. Togani's entire room at the division has all these ships everywhere. There's ships in bottles, there's ships on the wall, there's painting of the ocean, all this. What did Kamui and Shisui escape on? A mother trucking ship. So I was like, did Togani's got, connections to his family that's the pharmaceutical company. Did he get connections to get Kamui a ship to get out of there? And it would make sense if Togani is working with Kamui and got him a ship, because then when Akane has the chance to point a gun at Kamui and be like, I'm going to blast you, mother trucker, and not let you escape, who steps in to take the gun away from Akane? Togani. Togani steps in, takes the gun away, and is like, oh, no, I'll do it. It's my job as an enforcer. I'm telling y'all. I'm telling you. I thought about that all day today. I was driving to work, and I was like, what if Togani is working with Kamui? He supplied him the boat, and he took away the gun from Akane so she couldn't shoot Kamui. They both are interested and obsessed with Akane and her hue and her color. So my theory has been updated from the weirdness that it was this last week. And so now I think Togani is working with Kamui. I think he's helping him. I think they both have similar goals, but he's supplying him with something, and he's making sure that Akane can't kill Kamui. I don't know. And I could be wrong, but I was like, there's all these little connections that could be there. And I'm like, maybe it's all red herrings. Maybe the show wants me to think that they're working together when really what I thought earlier of them working apart is correct. But I don't know. The one thing I do love about this series is making me question whether Togani is working with Kamui or not. And what do we do with that? So I'm super excited to see where that goes. But Anyway, so those are my comments. I'm super excited. I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon, which includes Alex Cornejo, Anime Annie, Be Happy, Dana, Destiny Marie, Danger Zone, Eric, Loisy G, Kiri, Lyndon, Matthew Palfinier, Shimoyama, Sunspots, Trails, Translucent Min, Nameless Monster, Murph Hugh, Nicholas, Schlappalot, and Mateo L. Fidel. So thank you all so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. All of my love. Yeah, I'm really excited. What's gonna happen now? Things seemed like they were going from bad to worse, where Kamui was hacking not only the drones but also the security systems. And how are we gonna respond to this? 'Tis the question. So we're gonna find out, but we're gonna discover this and see what happens. And we're going to start episode 7 of season 2 of Psycho-Pass. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let us go. Curiouser and curiouser. What do we do? This episode went by so quickly. This episode went by very fast. Very fast, Huckleberry. I know. It went by so quickly. And I'm very surprised at how nonchalant Sybil is about all of this. But I was expecting Sybil to have a big reaction. However, Akane kind of basically brought it up that Sybil having a giant reaction to this anomaly in the system means that it's acknowledging the anomaly in the system, and that's the last thing that Sybil wants to do. They're like, what problem? We don't have a problem. What burning fire outside? We're fine. So it's like the Sybil system is going to ignore it and be like, oh no, we're perfectly fine. And I'm like, are we? Are we, show? Because I don't think we are, but anyway, we need to talk about this and everything going on in this episode, because this episode was good. This episode was really weird. Next week is the rule of 8, which if you know my channel, you know that Romania believes if you have an 11 to 13 episode season, the 8th episode is that transition into the final arc and the climax of the season. So the 8th episode is usually pretty special. I think that's not going to be an exception with this case, and I feel like with this episode, we're making a transition to the climax, to the final arc. So next week being episode 8 it seems fitting that if we're going to have a twist go down, it will probably be next episode. So nice. So yeah. But let's talk about this episode, because I feel like a lot of things were being set up. And we need to talk about the pieces that are on the board, right? So let's do that, shall we? Let's talk about the pieces that are out of the picture, right? The ones that we are not going to have to deal with at this moment. So we know that poor Sugo is out of commission. Good for him. I was like, damn, Sugo went through a lot last episode and the episode before it. So I'm actually not mad that Sugo has to sit this one out. Him sitting it out means he probably will live. So we'll see, right? I'm rooting for Sugo. I want him to live because I've come to like his character quite a lot. But we start out this episode going through the rain, and then Sugo's just like, ugh. He's like overacting. He's like, my leg. I love it. There was a girl that used to be one of my roommates in college. She was the worst. And she would fake faint a lot, like just for attention. The worst. And the reason I say that is because I've seen someone faint before. When you faint in real life, boom, you're down to the ground. There's no theatrics. You're just on the floor, passed out. She'd be like, oh no. And like pass out with a hand on the head. And I'm like, come on, girl. So, but I do believe Sugo is actually struggling. So bless his heart, poor Sugo. I'm glad that he's okay. But yes, the case isn't over yet, as they tell us overhead. And we're already relying on drones. And Shion pulls up the map being like, we just lost 7 people. 7 people just died like that. And now an entire division was wiped out. So we need to talk about that. So out of the picture, Division 3. Division 3, they did. They are gone. And we see like the pictures of all of them up there. The one guy that was the leader, the two trench coat dudes that were probably having an affair on the side. Our boy Kaide, our bro, he's dead. Glasses boy, the one token girl character. The token vagina of that crew is gone. And then Shinso, who seemed like the only decent one, he's out. So yeah, so many eyes and curls suffered in the last episode. So many. I love Shion blowing the smoke on the screen, being like, this is a problem. People are dropping like flies, and the Sybil system doesn't care. It's interesting because, you know, there is a little bit of speculation in this episode of whether the Sybil system is just getting people out of the way. But then we know from season 1, the Sybil system kind of relies on the enforcers and inspectors to do what the droids cannot. So interesting. But yeah, it's just like a massacre. Everything like just going around town. When the drone like went over a body and just went like just like bump, like speed bumped over a corpse. That was wild. I just, you know, whatever. And then the idea that these drones causing all this havoc and chaos are still being, it's kind of insane that we're having to deal with a lot of fires here. So what we're dealing with, we're going to put that up here. What we're dealing with is the humans playing the drones and attacking civilians. That's a fire that they have to put out. The civilians getting attacked. And it's like, you can tell that the division is like, we probably need to deal with this other Kamui situation, but we can't because this is the immediate danger. And we just have to stop the stress level of these people one by one. It's crazy. And the sickening part is that these people playing these games, they know it's real people they're hurting. So they should not be surprised at all when, you know, the police come knocking on their door. I just love, can we talk about Hinakawa? Can we talk about Hinakawa? I don't want this baby to die. Kagari has given me like war flashbacks and war PTSD because I already am getting attached to Hinakawa, and they did the thing this episode. They were like, what a good kid Hinakawa is. What a sweet boy. It'd be an awful shame if something happened to him. I'm like, leave him alone. You've already taken one redhead from us. Technically 2 if you count Kaide. Quit taking another. Stop it. He's a ginger. Leave him alone. I'm really liking Hinakawa's character, and we get a little bit backstory on him, and I'm like, son of a bitch, if you kill him too, no, he's too precious. Stop it. But we're going to talk about that medication and that whole thing, because that's very interesting. But I just love that Hinakawa's like, I'm going to administer justice. It was so cheesy and corny in episode 1, but now it's really endearing that that's just like his little catchphrase. And it's like, no, leave Hinakawa alone. He's precious. Stop it. And he doesn't execute him. He just paralyzes him. Like, what a bean. So anyway, they're like, they have to keep going from area to area. Meanwhile, we go back to old Buffalo Bill's hideout where we see the faces. Okay, there is a newspaper on the, like several newspaper and monies on the table, but we don't really get to see. I'm like, is that newspaper about the plane crash? I don't know. We don't get to know for sure. I'm hoping they would show us, but yeah, you can't, in a society monitored by scanners, you can't pretend to be someone else. But what do we do about that? And then he's like, but that all changes if the person is able to keep their psychopaths clear intentionally. Yeah, for example, organ transplants. So interesting. So Saiga is interviewing this one guy saying transplanting a lot of one's organs is like transplanting one's psychopaths. And they're like, if the psychopath is clear, then the discrepancy would be able to be treated as a margin of error. So I'm like, has Kamui been like distributing organs to randos and they're his now minions? What is going on? So interesting. So we have this idea about organ transplant possibly affecting the hue. which I didn't even think about. That is massively bizarre and oddly specific, but I mean, I guess it could happen and work. So I'm like, Kamui seems like the type of person that would distribute his organs to random people and be like, yes, of course. It's all part of my martyrdom to give you my kidney that will now clear your psychopaths. I'm like, wait, what? So I don't know if that's the case, but he has harvested a lot of organs, and they may be organs from people whose hues are clear as well, which is a little disturbing because what that's suggesting to me is that Akane, interestingly enough, I've always thought Akane was asymptomatic. I thought she was, but Sybil System does not seem to think that, nor do they seem to care at this moment. They're too worried about following her around. But, you know who does maybe become interested in her? Kamui. So could they be wanting possibly to, like, get her organs and harvest them and distribute them to people? That's terrifying. That would be really terrifying if Kamui was wanting to, like, instead of the Sybil System taking asymptomatic, irregular people and taking their brains to become part of the hive mind, it would be creepy too if Kamui was like, oh, Akane, I want all of your organs so I can distribute them to people and their psychopaths can become clear. That's messed up too. So, what are we going to do about that? And then we think that this guy that's imitating Masuda, that he was a fake that was just pretending to be somebody that he wasn't, but then he ends up dying, so we can't find out any more info. So it's so frustrating. And that's when they like come to get him, and he leaves, and he ends up dying like instantly. There are people who are pretending to be someone else. Yeah, are they his accomplices? And we don't find out an answer, damn it. So, okay. We need to talk about this scene of Akane and Togani, right? And the subsequent scene after this. So Akane is lamenting the fact that she could not shoot. She got close, but she couldn't shoot. And Togani, you know, kudos to Togani for saying, you know, if it weren't for you, we'd all be dead. So you shouldn't beat yourself up about that. You know, it's fine. And more importantly, we were able to see Kamui as a real person. And he's like, well, you're the only one who can arrest Kamui after all. Why does he look so evil when he says that? She can't see his face, but we can. It's like the show is taunting us and the show is teasing us with, yes, Mullet Man is in fact a bad guy, but you don't know how and you don't know why and no one else knows. And I'm like, son of a bitch show. How dare you? This does feel like a Sherlock novel where you're like, oh, we know who the bad guy is, but how and why? And the show does not seem to want to give us answers. Yeah, I'm like, quit trying to imitate Kogami. Stop it. And Akane even has that look on her face like, quit trying to imitate him. We'll talk about this. I don't want to focus too much on the OP because I feel like it's going to give something away. So we'll just look at it next time. It'll be fine. So we have the what color. I love the mind palace that Akane goes to now. That she goes to this mind palace, kind of like Kogami went to. But I love that in this space, she is making words out of words that are made out of smoke that surround Kogami. And I love that she doesn't smoke herself. She just uses the smell of cigarette smoke to be like an incense, to be something that causes her to go into this meditative state. It's amazing. I love it. She's like, so he tried to see if an unauthorized person could carry a dominator, right? And that was the first incident. Then he tried to see if a dominator could judge an inspector. And that was the second incident. Yep, we narrowed that down. So now he's attacked and obtained multiple dominators. That's the third incident. So he did it to give them to his accomplices. In other words, his goal cannot be achieved by himself. So as far as we know, there are 8 dominators, right? There are 8 dominators, which that's enough to do plenty of damage. It is, especially if Shisui has 1 and then Kamui has another, and that just leaves 6 others that are out there. That's enough. I mean, we've seen from Mikishima, him and Cho and like 5 people can do quite a lot of damage. And what's crazy is now, instead of the helmets that protects someone's psychopaths from being clouded. Now we're not even relying on helmets. He's just using organ transplants and like surgery to get people to where their psychopath is clear enough, and then he's giving them weapons. So it's like just taking Makishima stuff to the next level, and I'm like, that's what do we do? So I mean, lucky number 8, right? And next episode's episode 8. I don't know how to feel about that. But yeah, who is he trying to point these dominators at? Yeah. And the dominator doesn't even recognize him. So that's kind of the interesting thing, is it doesn't recognize him. So he supposedly was the only survivor on this plane crash. We're going to talk about that. And then we see Kogami say, when something impossible happens, there's only 2 possibilities. Either your assumptions are wrong or you've gone crazy. And she's like, it would make sense if this was just a figment of my imagination, but we know that Kamui's there. So what do we do with that? I love that she's looking at Kogami being like, he's also different from Makishima. She's like, he's unique, but he's not criminally asymptomatic. Yeah. So what do we do? That's why he's not recognized in this society. There should be a trick there, right? And I love that we see a Kasai there. We see Saiga. We see the Division 2 woman. A trick that makes him take advantage of the society that manages each individual. And the answer may be closer than we think. So the question is, do we think that she's on to Togani? Do we think that she's on to him? Because how is he able to get past the system? Well, here's the thing. The scary thing is, we think that Kamui, one of his personas, has been the therapist. They didn't really focus on that a whole lot at the end of the episode. We just kind of ended the episode, but I was like, that seems like a big freaking deal that he's been the therapist since season 1 that has been there using that hollow. That seems like it would be pretty significant. I'm just saying, he's been manipulating Ganoza and listening to him this entire time. If I was Ganoza, I would be freaking the fudge out, knowing that this ghost has been with me the entirety of my time at the Public Safety Bureau. So we're going to put Togani up here because I want to talk about Togani and that information that Mika finds out about him. But I want to also put on here that Kamui has been the therapist. That is terrifying to me, that he's been there giving them advice. And if he can get into the Public Safety Bureau and is there as a therapist, there is no telling what he's done in the system. I'm hoping they follow up on that next episode, because I'm like, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big deal. That it's closer than we think. And then we see Togani saying, "La, is something wrong?" And she's like, "No, sorry, I spaced out with this cigarette. What did you just say?" And he's like, "I was talking about Kamui. Uncovering his bodily constitution, which isn't recognized by the scans, is the best way to resolve the whole thing." Like, figuring out why, if we can figure out why the scans don't recognize him, then that might be our answer. Now, the question is, though, my question with Kamui was Kamui the survivor? I don't know. Did they manipulate the files to say Kamui was the survivor, or what? The relationship with the surgeon is something that's interesting to me, and I want to know more about it. Yeah. She's like, we need to determine what his color is and find out the reason. And he's like, how can Kamui continue to be a ghost? So what's interesting is if Togani is in fact working for Kamui, which I think he is, he's doing a really good job of hiding it, because he's like, sure, let's explore the crime scene. Let's do this and this. But he really doesn't do, like, he's on the crime scene and he helps find convenient clues, but I feel like there's stuff that maybe she would have found anyway, so he's just making himself look useful. Interesting. I'm so curious, right? What the fudge? And then Akane, what color are you? I feel like Akane is maybe onto Togani and she's not letting on. Maybe. Because Togani could be something that's right in front of them that is helping Kamui that they don't realize, right? Because all this kind of happened when Togani got onto the force, so we're going to talk about this here in a minute about Togani. But yeah, so besides the transplant organs, there were biocontact lenses with a traced retinal pattern in Kamui's hideout. So that's how he's been doing it. I was like, how could he do an eye transplant on himself? That seems like a plot hole. No, it's worse than that. It's something that makes sense. He's using these contacts that have enough retinal info to be shizsuis. That's even worse than an eye transplant because I think it's genius. It's not only taking advantage of the technology in this world, but the fact that, of course, they could implant like retinal information into a contact lens. Of course. Because if you think about it, when, if you're signed up as an organ donor, which I'm signed up as an organ donor. So if I die, my organs are useful to someone, they can use them. That seems legit. But it would make sense to kind of be like the next level of that. So if you were able to die and your eyes were good, someone could take retinal pieces of your eyes, make a contact lens that would allow you to see. That seems like a futuristic sci-fi technology that would be kind of handy. So, of course, it would make sense. And, of course, Kamui could just be like, oh, I have this eyeball, but I want to make these retinal contacts, from a cousin. And the doctor's like, sure. And if he has a surgeon working for him, why not? So, yeah, that's terrifying. Because now it's not just one eye. Because at first I was like, well, how are they going to get more eyes to recognize the Dominators? Are they going to need the eyes from the corpses? No, they'll just take bits and pieces of that little eye they took from Shisui, implant them into like 16 pairs of contacts, and then you have enough for everybody. Or even 8 contacts. That's all you need. That's terrifying. Yep. In order for an unauthorized person, you'd have no choice but to have it falsely recognize them as authorized. Yeah, and so I like the shown as like, look, to Kamui, Shisui is just a pawn to serve the purpose, so that's why we detected the multiple ones of her. And then 8 Dominators have been taken, which means up to 8 Shisuis will probably be detected, which is terrifying. And so I like this Shion's like, well, you're pretty calm about this terrifying situation that we could have 8 Dominators out to kill everybody. You thought up a way to stop them? And I like that he's like, no. He's just like, how else am I going to respond to this, right? He's like, as long as Sybil continues to recognize them as valid, the Dominators will continue to be used. And I like this Shion's like, are you being sarcastic? And he's like, well, am I wrong? Where's the lie? And that's kind of the crazy thing, is that the Sybil system, by all accounts, should recognize them as a problem and deactivate them. But because the Sybil system is so petty and the brain, like Hive Collective, doesn't want to admit that it's wrong or that there's a chance it could be wrong, it's not going to do it. And so I'm like, it's like the most arrogant thing ever, but it won't admit that it's wrong. It's like, no, I'm omnipotent. So why would I say that? Yeah, it's even worse. Imposters are walking around without any problems, and an inspector who's aiding a criminal is at large. He's like, I'm just stating facts. Meanwhile, we have I do like the trio of them standing there together, Akane and Ginoza and Togani. And I like that she's like, well, you guys can go back. I'm going to stay here a little bit longer. And I thought it was interesting where Ginoza's like, you should rest, Tsunamori. And Togani's like, yeah. And she's like, oh, ha, 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 I can't get much rest at my apartment, because it's a crime scene. And Ginoza's like, wait, where have you been staying at? Why are you staying there? And then I like that Ginoza's like, do you not think that that's a suspicious place to be? And then Togani goes, are you using yourself as bait? Like, they come at it from 2 different directions. Ginoza's like, are you being, reckless? And Togani's like, are you being strategic? And Akane's like, no, I just haven't thought about it. I really thought Ginoza or Togani were going to invite her to their place. I thought that originally Togani would be like, well, you can stay at my place, but, that seems a bit, I feel like that's way too suspicious, and maybe, like, that's too much inviting the lion, climbing into the lion's mouth. But I thought that Ginoza would maybe let her stay with him, not because I just want to ship it, but also because I want to ship it. But then I'm like, yeah, would they approve of an inspector staying with an enforcer? Probably not. Probably not. But, interesting. And she's like, no, I'm not foolhardy. I just haven't had the time. And so they leave, and that's when she says that her grandma's place has been hit, and Togani takes note of that. So, the nursing home where Aoi Tsunemori. Now, here's the thing. Aoi means blue. I do know that from Yona of the Dawn. Aoi means blue. So, on to you. So, yeah. So, there was, in protective custody, there was a malfunction with the nursing drones. And it looked for a second like there was a WC, like, embedded in the wall. But no. So, she goes past the nursing drone, past the symbol that looks like it could be a W. And then gets to her grandma. And her grandma seems like she's perfectly fine. I don't know. Her grandma has these earrings in her ear saying that it's been a while, Akane, and she has like these green earrings. And they do something where they do a little close up on the green earring and it like lights up and like shimmers. I'm like, I don't know. And there's the flowers there and all that. She's like, see you neglect your work. It's a trifling matter. And she's like, I didn't neglect my job. And she's like, you haven't changed at all. You single-mindedly focus on the needs of others instead of your own. And she's like, oh. And Connie's like, what are you talking about? The needs of others instead of my own. She's like, I'm sorry if I caused you trouble. She's like, I never think you caused me trouble. I know how how valuable people's lives are. And you always hold on to that. Interesting. And then she says, Grandma, thank you. Yeah, and that little sparkle on the earring, something's up with the grandma. That was a weird scene. It's there for a reason. Something's up with that grandma. Something's up with that whole scene of her being like, oh, thanks for coming here and caring for others and showing how you care. That's real nice. Something's up. I'm like, why? I don't know. The fact that where her grandma got attacked at, her grandma's fine. And there was that close up of that earring. Something's up. So what's up with the grandma? We're going to put that on here. I don't know. And the earring was green. Is that something to do with the hue too? It's like the show is planting all of these clues, but you don't know what the clues are going to lead to. So it's like, you're like, could that be a clue? What's happening? Also, the tower of the Public Safety Bureau, I'm just going to say, looks like a giant dark blue dildo. It needs to be said. I've been thinking about it for 2 seasons. We are doing a zoom in on it. It needs to be said. So then Akane comes to hear Sybil's thoughts. What do you think about all this craziness? What's interesting is we don't know which Sybil brain it is. I feel like it's Toma, because this version of Kasai seems to give no shits. They're just like, why? Why do we have to take action? Watch your mouth, Akane. It seems like the more agitated brain, so, interesting. And again, Kasai's earrings are blue. The grandma's earrings were green. What do we do with this, y'all? What do we do with this? And she's like, oh, well, Shisui Psychopath is clear. So if we take action, it'll look like that we have a problem. That's no good. So she has a clear color. Yeah, everything's fine. And the system would be flawed if we did anything else. I like that Akane's like, screw the rules. You have money. Why aren't we doing the damn thing? Are you not concerned that this could take your entire system down? And she's like, oh, Kamui. She's like, I've read your report, but your dominators didn't recognize him, and that's not possible. So I'm like, son of a bitch, Sybil System. It's so funny because the Sybil System is just using Akane and watching her and gathering all this data, but they don't give a shit. They're like, we don't care. We're just going to keep doing our thing. You guys are handling all the fires. You're putting them out. Why do we have to worry, you know? But she makes a suggestion that they go ahead and just kill him. They're like, just get Kamui out of the way, and then we don't have to worry about it. What's fascinating and being set up here is the idea that the Sybil System wants Kamui destroyed. They want Kamui gone. They don't want his brain because he's asymptomatic and an irregularity. He's like, a virus. And they're like, no, we need you to patch that up real quick because we don't want to deal with that anymore. They don't want something like Kamui muddying the water. He's not what they want as far as asymptomatic goes. He's this anomaly, and they're like, yeah. He's kind of like Kamui. If you ever played the original Pokemon game, like Pokemon Blue, Kamui is Missing No. That's what he is. Missing No or Missing Number was a glitch in the system, and there was a very certain way to get it activated in the game. It was a long and arduous process, but I did it so many times because it felt like I was unlocking a secret code when I did it, but it would completely mess up your game. You'd have to restart. It completely ruined everything and just warped the game beyond distinction. But that's kind of what it feels like. It's like if you just play the game, the Missing No is always there, but if you just ignore it, then you technically don't have to deal with it. So that's kind of what it feels like. And Akane's like, but aren't you concerned? And she's like, why? She's like, you're not going to let him stop us because that's you. And as long as you keep everyone in line and you just keep fighting it out, we don't care. You're going to find him and kill him. That's all, right? Do your justice thing. Go on, Akane. She's like, do you think killing him is appropriate? And she's like, well, wasn't it a mistake for you to stop Enforcer Togani from doing it? She's like, it's strange. You guys have been maintaining the system. Yeah, saying that you take in irregular people, but when it comes to Kamui, you just want to eliminate him without observing him because you don't think that he's the type of irregularity you can deal with, so you just want to get rid of him. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to solve the mystery behind Kamui and bring him to rightful justice. I like Kasai here too, because Kasai's like, interesting. I like the way that you can kind of tell when there's a different brain in Kasai because her body language changes. Like this version of Kasai, I assume it's Toma. I could be wrong, but this version of Kasai is like, interesting. So you're gonna do that. Okay, Akane. All right. Like they seem bewildered and amused and fascinated by her. And like, no, continue to strive to fulfill your duty. Uh-huh. The idea of Kasai and the Sybil system, this could be deity, interacting with Akane, this mortal girl who is like their poster child, but not their poster child. It's fascinating. Mm-hmm. What do we do with this? The Sybil system reacted a lot tamer than I thought they would, but then their actions make perfect sense because they are that petty. They just are. So, okay, then we have Togani finding out that the chair, everything had been shifted, and then sons of bitches. He looks over and be like, they're not thorough, are they? No, Mika's not that thorough, right? And then the tracking, they copied the data. Of his background, and he looks onto the ship. Yep, the ship was connecting a camera. Oh, okay. So, the camera on the ship had the little gleam to it. Does the grandma's earrings, do they have a camera? I don't even know anymore. There's so many clues. There's so many weird like hints and suggestions of things that I'm like, but, how? Yeah. And Togani's like, sure. And he's like, well, you must really dislike me, Shimotsuki. No, so he knows. So now he knows. He's being quiet about it, but he knows that she's been looking into him. She has no clue that he knows. But, okay, so we get her looking at his file, and she's like, an old personnel file. Yeah. He was assigned as an enforcer 18 years ago. So, Togani, if I can get this to get back there. Togani was originally 18 years ago an enforcer. But wouldn't the Sybil system know that? Wouldn't they know he was an enforcer that had the highest crime coefficient? Yeah. They say 18 years ago, he was 23 years old at the time. I'm just, going to do some quick math here and say if he was 23 18 years ago, Right now, he would be 41. That bitch don't look 41 to me. He'd be like Saiga's age. Yeah, but all the inspectors he worked with became latent criminals and were executed with eliminators. Imagine that. So everyone but him was executed. Yeah, the data wasn't made available to us. Uh-huh. And then she's all by herself. Yeah, because it says he's 26. What's with this guy? Here's the thing, y'all. Here's the thing. It says he's 26. But we now know that that is a bold-faced lie. He is not 26. He should be 41. That photo of him with the woman in the portrait that looks kind of like Kasai. How do we know that's not Kasai from 20 years ago? Or even, he was a kid then, so even earlier than that, like 40 years ago. Is he a cyborg? Is he a cyborg that's kind of like Sinjuru, the one from season 1 that was a cyborg? Is he? How old is this mother trucker? How is he not aged? Everyone else around him in his unit died except him. Is he a creation of the Sybil System to test Akane? What the fudge, Sybil System? What is happening? And that's what, yeah, I don't blame her for dropping her damn boba tea, because I'd be like, what are we doing now? Yeah. And that's when Tsunemori calls her in. Yeah. So Mika being on edge kind of makes sense, because now she's in the room with a guy that is a lie. And also you're dealing with somebody, how do we know he didn't die and he's not a hollow himself being used? How do we know that? I know that him and Kamui can't technically be in the same place at the same time, but how do we know he's not a hollow? How do we... Although, if he was a hollow, Hinakawa would know, so that's not the case. But what the fudge? We don't know anything about him at all. Like, he's a straight up mystery at this point. Like, I don't know what to do with this information. I need to watch the next episode to find out more, damn it. So, like, okay, we have everybody here. Yeah, and Sugo won't be able to come back for a while. Meanwhile, okay, also on the desk of Togani, there is an hourglass and like an old-timey tea set. What the fudge, y'all? What the fudge? Something's up. I don't know. And Mika's like, and he's smiling at it. Bitch knows. Bitch knows that she knows. It's a waiting game now until everything starts to unravel, and I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for that at all. But yeah, so they basically decide that they searched for Masuda, thinking that he might be able to see Kamui, but he died right after being released. Yeah. Either he killed himself or was killed. Yeah. And he admired Kamui enough to die without hesitation. So he killed himself, basically, is what they're suggesting. But we couldn't do anything knowing he wasn't the real Masuda. Yeah, so he was a fake. She's like, we're going to start investigating the evidence left at the scene of the crime. What stood out was there was a large number of organs, as well as an enormous amount of stress care medication. So yeah, we have all these organs that were under file, and all this stress care medication, which could be tied to the Ao pharmaceutical or not. And then Hinakawa, bless his little heart, he's like, yeah, they're mostly illegal drugs that were personally compounded. So we are under the assumption that Kamui may be a pharmacist, right? That Kamui, get this on here, that he might be a pharmacist as well. Not just a therapist, but a pharmacist. He's just a jack of all trades, right? Just doing all the things. And so I like that they established that these drugs weren't the kind you just find, and Hinakawa would know because he's taking an exorbitant amount of them. But he's like, you know, this would take an actual knowledge of what you're doing. So fun times. And I mean, if he's a pharmacist getting hooked up with a surgeon, it's not too out of the question to have that like circle of friends. And they find out this hollow. I like that Mika, I like that Akane and them is like, wait, pharmacist hollow, Kamui wearing it. What's going on? He's like, oh yeah, back at the incident where Ayanagi died. And he's like, I told Mika about it. Bitch just throws Mika under the bus. He's like, I told her about it in the brief, but I'm just an enforcer. I'm just doing my job. I was like, yes, get it, Hinakawa. Get it. He's like, I'm just doing my duty. Why do I have to like write an email? And he sees it through the barricade. Yeah, so we're finding out all these hollows they just aged up the untraceable children that are dead, right? That can get past the system. What's interesting is Kamui can get past the system even though he's supposedly in the body of a child that lived. So I'm super curious. And I like that Mika's like, you should have spoke up. And he's like, well, sorry, you didn't tell me to. So yeah. And like the woman hollow in the incident. So there's 185 people. So yeah, they want to check the details of the accident. So yeah, let's get this. This flight crashes. It was carrying elementary children on a school trip. And it was flight 321 crashed into Mount Kumataka. There was a problem with the airframe. Interesting. There's 185 children and accompanying adults, crew members, and the pilots. But there was one survivor. And then we bring up the name. Yeah. Kirito Kamui. Now the question is, Kamui supposedly was, a survivor in this, but did they survive long enough to become an adult? Or is someone using his name? That's the thing too. If you're trying not to be detected by the system, how do you do that? Well, you become a ghost. And you could say that the survivor is being used by someone else. So someone could be posing as Kamui, but they are not actually Kamui. Kamui could be dead, and that's why the system doesn't recognize him anymore. But whoever is using the body has like surgically applied the face and is just walking around with it and is assuming they're them, and that's how they're bypassing the system. Maybe. Yep. And there we go. So what do we do about that? And she's like, okay, he was the only survivor. And they can't access the record on him. It's very weird that the record on the kid and the doctor, the surgeon, can't be accessed by the Public Safety Bureau because of like HIPAA. I'm like, they can access everybody else's files, but for some reason they don't have authority on this. Weird. But medical confidentiality. So they find the surgeon. We find him here. Yeah. Yohei Mazuzaki, who's 55. Okay. And he's a very clear psychopath as well. Probably another member of Kamui's cult. And I just love that Akane's like, Hinakawa, look, you did... Oh, my toy. Oh, sorry. It's like, Hinakawa, you did a very good job. Really good work. Now do it 185 times over. And Hinakawa is such a bean. He's such a bean. He's like, okay, sure, Miss Akane, I'll do it for you. I freaking love him, right? But they're like, if we can identify another hollow, we should be able to, like, crack this even further. And he's like, okay, big sis. I like that he calls Akane big sis. Having that bro-sister relationship. Love it. So, anyway, everybody gets assigned their mission. And Shon's like, all right, let's make this go to work. Meanwhile, Kamui is in this lab with Shisui in the background. There's all these tubes and everything, and these, like, what are they planning on doing? And he's like, once you receive them, all of you will be able to use the Dominators. So it's like this glove that they get at the very end that's gonna let them use the Dominators. Damn that he did all the surgical work there. He's like, now I have to find the location of the one who makes the society what it is. So yeah, he's basically got to find Kasai and the Sybil System. And then, damn it, then what are we going to do? What are we going to do then? And that's when the guy knows that they're coming to get him. He's like, I should be the one thanking you. All the best in your plan, Corito. Where was he at, though? I want to see where he was at when he hung up the phone. Yeah, he was in a building somewhere where all this is going down. I'm like, what is going on? And so, yeah, they come in and take him. He's like, I'm a poor talker, but I'm worried I won't be able to properly convey Kamui's gospel. Yeah, he's made all these people drink the Kool-Aid. So, meanwhile, they're taking him back to interrogate him. And Mika is being told to check Kamui's treatment record. And she's like, is this necessary? And he's like, well, if he gets Kamui's help to maintain a clear psychopath, he might lie in the interrogation. We need to corroborate his story. I like that Mika is just not wanting to get along with this. She's trying to be just disruptive. But I'm like, girl, I get that now is not exactly maybe the time to talk about Togani, but I don't know when a better time to talk about Togani is. Maybe you should just talk about how weird he is, you know, before shit goes down in the next 3 episodes. But Mika doesn't. She doesn't. Instead, she asks, she's like, Kunozuka, there's something I want you to help me with. But instead, Hinakawa is... So, Hinakawa is still there, going through... He's at 155 out of 185 hollows, going through it all and eating his rice. And she's like, what? Like, what are we doing? And we see him stock up the rice with the medication. Now... I said Momoi because Momoi in Kuroko's Basketball, she is notorious for trying to cook, and she messes up the cooking every time by just putting protein supplements and vitamins on top of the meal and makes it horrible. So I instantly thought of that, being like, Hinakawa, are you Momoi related? Because you guys tend to do the same thing. But he just piles on all this medication onto his rice. So basically, Hinakawa let Kunozuka go get some ass so he can finish up this project. Kunozuka was like, I gotta go upstairs to see Shion. Are you okay working by yourself? And Hinakawa was like, just go. What a friend. Hinakawa gets MVP for letting sex happen. Good job, Hinakawa. Way to go. And he's like almost done with all the hollows. And she's like, fine, give me a hand. Meanwhile, I like that you have Shion is just naked in bed. I like that their room, great aesthetic. I like that Shion is just naked in bed on her iPad, and then you have Kunozuka just getting her undies back on for the scene, saying he became dependent on medication. Poor thing. So, Hinakawa. So, Sho's dependent upon medication, so... Does that mean that he's similar to the people that rely on the medication to stay calm the whole time? Because he's pretty calm the whole freaking time. So that could have something to do with it. Yeah. He improved his skills to protect himself, which helped him become a hollow designer. She's like, how cute. And Kunozuka's like, if that was the whole story, he wouldn't have to become an enforcer. So like Kunozuka's like, there's something else there that's getting him here. That, yeah, we're not seeing the full picture yet. Meanwhile, we see Hinakawa working on there. The authorization level of his information is set high. Why? And I like Mika's like, how should I know? I'm like, Mika, be a team player. She's like, how do I know? You figure it out. And I'm like, Mika. And I get that Mika's stressed about the whole Togani situation, but I'm like, girl, why are you leaving this all to him? This poor boy. He needs a hug. She's like, it's involved. One possibility is that it involved patents for technology on drugs. So that's why his stuff is high priority. And she's like, drug patents? She's like, you mean one of the leading organizations with drug patents in Japan is the Togani Foundation, who has this very cryptic symbol of this triangle with like the tri-wizard, the tri-wand, and there's like a moon. It's like Illuminati symbolism. The fudge. Yeah. Okay. The Togani Foundation. Yeah. So we're looking at the Togani Foundation, who could possibly have connections to the surgeon, who possibly has connections with Kamui, who possibly has connections with Togani. So I'm like, is Togani helping Kamui secretly? This show is giving us all these threads that could be connected together, and I'm just waiting for them to connect. I'm like, is Togani and Kamui working together? Is the surgeon with someone behind it? Togani deserves a freaking Oscar at this point for fooling everyone in the show and simultaneously making us realize how suspicious he is, but not knowing to what capacity. It's frustrating, y'all. It's frustrating. Yeah. And she's like, on second thought, I'm going to investigate this case. You work on creating the Agent Apollos. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, those were the original orders, right? So, all right. Meanwhile, there's not gonna... I love that Saiga comes in like a freaking Yu-Gi-Oh dueler. And he's just like lays down his full deck of cards. I love Saiga. He's just freaking badass. He's so great. And he's like, I'm not going to talk to just anyone. But you seem wise and trustworthy. And Saiga's like, I give off that vibe. He's like, thank you. He's like, I'll tell you about Kamui. Uh-huh. And then our poor boy, Sho, just like did all the work and then he just passed out. What a sweet bean. Meanwhile, so she goes to all the aged Apollos and we start seeing all these people aged up, right? And then we see these characters, and then we see Riku Mukujima, and it's the mother truckin' therapist. And Gano's is like, wait a minute. Yeah, him. He's been there the whole damn time. Yeah, this guy. He was one of the ones at the program at the drone facility. Uh-huh. Yeah, and others too. I've seen other people's faces. He was in charge of vehicle maintenance. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. You think that one single guy is making fools of you. But that's not the case. He was never alone at all. Oh my God. Forget the third or the fourth hollow. No. He's been right beside us all this time. And so we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah, there's 8 of them there. So it looks like another girl. And then the other 6 guys. Yeah. And then that's when he gets the Dominator gear. So it could be the fact. I guess Kamui may not have been the therapist themselves, but the people that have been working with Kamui have been using the hollows as well. Possibly. Either Kamui's been using the hollows and has been the therapist and these other people this whole time because he was the guy in the drone factory, or Kamui and his associates have all been using the hollows to be these people that can't be, traced. Oh my God. That still doesn't answer why Kamui himself can't be detected by the Dominators. Not necessarily. Unless maybe Kamui is born in another country and doesn't have official records, but he did have records on file there. I don't know. I don't know. But this episode has given us a ton of clues, but no solid definitive answers yet, and it's so frustrating. But I want to watch the next episode right now, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and see what y'all say in the comments beforehand. So, but anyway, this is a really good episode, but I have a feeling Rule of 8 next week is going to be even crazier. So in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back real soon with episode 8, Rule of 8 for Psychopath Season 2. We'll see what we get, y'all, and I'll see you then.